Hi, I'm Nelda Spell Mitchell. Have I Told Y'all This is a collection of stories of things that happened with my life and my husband's life and things we heard about. Put them all in story form so I could read them to my grandchildren. They could read them themselves. But today I'm going to read you about the story, the trip. The trip that's worse than Dennis's trip to hell. Now, we survived that. Oh my goodness, did we ever? Well, keep in mind that this story took place before credit cards, before cell phones. Checks were available, but they would not be accepted out of your stomping grounds. Dennis's brother Tony decided he would grow cotton for a living the beginning of 1968. He was home without a job because of the workers' strike at the Masonite Corporation in Laurel, Mississippi. Tony had worked there doing shift work for more than 10 years, and he willingly joined other workers to strike for more pay. Tony had just bought a beautiful old homestead on the banks of Oakwood Creek, near where it flowed into the Leaf River in western Jones County. The property had just one big field. It had more than 50 acres in it, and then the rest of it was in woods. It had belonged to an old bachelor named Go Van Robinson, who had inherited it from his parents, who had inherited it from theirs. Tony was now free to farm. He had time, he had a beautiful river field, and he had a younger brother who was already growing cotton and had cotton planters, a cotton picker, and was willing to help him. Tony located a 460 Farmall tractor that ran on propane in the Mississippi Delta. Dennis had a 460 Farmall that ran on diesel that he really liked. Tony had used it enough to know that he wanted one also. They were hard to find since the 460 was a popular size among farmers. Tony and Dennis had gone to a tractor sale near Greenwood, Mississippi, and Tony had bought the tractor. And this is not a picture of it, but it's a 460 Farmall like Tony's would have bought, and like Dennis's was. Well, my daddy had a 1963 two-ton Chevrolet truck with side planks for hauling his cows, and Dennis could borrow it. So he volunteered to get the truck and go get the tractor for Tony, bring it home. Well, since travel everywhere outside our community was non-existent, Dennis invited me, our 12-year-old son Dale, 10-year-old Beverly, and 4-year-old Don to ride along on the adventure to go get the tractor so we could see the Mississippi Delta. We took off on a Sunday in February. The weather was mild, and that would be just perfect to take the children and me to get the tractor for Tony. It would be great fun to have an all-day trip to the Delta in the cattle truck. Well, even though I was not an experienced traveler, I had learned not to leave the house without something to snack on. I overruled Dennis's protest and carried a box of saltine crackers, a jar of peanut butter, and a knife to spread it with. We would buy soda pops to wash them down. Well, we didn't get stretched out good until we had a round of peanut butter and crackers. So let's stop for a cold drink. But where? It was Sunday, and Mississippi was good about obeying the blue law. Now, the blue law meant that everything the businesses all shut down on Sunday. There were just very, very few stores open to sell essential gas and snack type food. Everything was closed. Dennis had said that we needed to go on Sunday so there would not be much traffic. He was nervous about hauling that tractor on the 2-ton truck, but he thought we could make it fine since the truck was in good shape. It was greased good, had plenty of oil, and a full tank of gas. Plus, he had enough money to buy gas for the trip there and to come back, and enough money to buy cold drinks because they were only 10 cents. We'd even stop and get a hamburger for lunch at a cafe if we could find it. Surely there would be one open. And the entire trip would take about 8 hours. Dennis had never taken a road trip in that truck, so he had no idea that it was a genuine gas guzzler. We were only halfway there when the gas needle was pointing to E. We were glad, the children and I were glad, for the only open service station had cold drinks for sale. Oh, goodness, yes. The children and I each got one. Dennis got a chew of tobacco and filled the truck up with gas, and he checked the oil. It was a little low, but it would be okay. Checking the oil in vehicles was a common practice at service stations. All stations at this time were called full service, for they would put the gas in for you, check the oil, and wash your windshields. Well, we drank our drinks. Beverly had gotten a 12-ounce knee-high orange. That was the largest drink available at that time. Cokes were 8 ounces and Grapettes were 6. Dennis got one of the empty bottles and spit out his spit. Before long, all the drinks had run through us, and we needed to stop. Dennis did not need to stop. He had not drunk anything, and he had been spitting out his body fluid, so he was near dehydration and was not sympathetic to our dilemma. Well, we reached our destination in the nick of time. It was an old equipment lot with used equipment, mostly tractors. And there was a loading ramp. All the buildings there were closed for Sunday, but there were plenty of places to get behind for relief. Dennis backed the truck to the ramp, drove the tractor up to it, and guess what? The tractor was wider than the truck. After surveying the situation, the only solution was to narrow up the tractor tires. The previous owner had left them wide for his use, which was a common practice, and they could be narrowed up by removing 2 U-bolts from each side and slide the tires on the axle closer to the tractor. Oh yes, that sounds like a simple procedure. First, remember that anything related to working on farm machinery that is outlined in an owner's manual, even has pictures and tells you exactly how to do it, even an untrained mechanic could do it with one eye and it half closed. Well, second, remember that this story unfolded on a Sunday when every business was closed. and now it was 11 a.m., and anyone who could unlock access to the tools and call in an off-duty mechanic to come, well, that person that had that key to do that was sitting on a church pew in a starched white shirt with a necktie and expensive suit, and he was sitting next to a wife that had a scrumptious meal ready for them to eat when just as soon as they could get home. So, when plans A and B failed, we looked around and saw a Saturday night shade tree mechanic who was walking by in search of tobacco. He had not had a bath in many moons and probably did not know what the inside of a church looked like. But right then, he looked like an angel to us. He was resourceful enough to find tools that would do, even though they were not in the manufacturer's list. And he had muscle enough on his small frame to help Dennis adjust those tires. Now, Dennis had already figured out that he had enough money to buy gas it would take to get us back home, and one more cold drink each. Each one cost 10 cents of 5 of us. He had figured that out. The truck had been using twice as much fuel as he had thought. So now here we were, after our normal lunch hour, no lunch. Dennis was hot, sweaty, and greasy. No restroom to clean up, nothing to pay the helper but the 50 cents of our drink money. Dennis gave the $50 to the man and told him that was all he had to pay him. The man smiled a big thank you, and he needed a pack of cigarettes, and now he could buy 2 packs. After the next gas fill up, the oil was lower, but maybe it would make it home. Then came the time to spend the last $10 for gas, which was not enough to fill up. Dennis checked the oil. It did not measure. There we were, north of Jackson, 75 miles from home, the middle of a beautiful Sunday afternoon. No lunch, plenty of peanut butter and crackers. We were in need of oil for the truck, and we sure did need something to drink. We found a closed service station. There was a water faucet outside and a hose pipe attached to it, and we drank water from that hose pipe, and it was so good. Dennis found a rusty bucket, crawled up in the truck, and drained the oil out of that tractor and poured it into the truck. It worked. The truck coasted into our driveway on fumes with a little oil still measuring in the truck just before dark. Well, by the way, Tony had an excellent cotton crop that year. It was just beautiful. The end.